Welcome to the Professional Priestess Podcast, the place where medicine carriers learn to hold wealth, visibility, and devotion without contraction. Together, let's part the veil. I want to introduce you to the humans behind the magic. Let's speak to the oracles walking their divine path of service, and the alchemists transmuting density into divinity, all while navigating a very human experience. Together, we will explore shadows and sovereignty, sex and spirit. We will go deep into your soulpreneur business as initiation and visibility as reclamation. I'm your host, Lindsay Schroeder, professional priestess and spiritual mentor for leaders, healers, and those called to take their place at the forefront of the feminine revolution. Every episode is a transmission, every conversation an activation. Welcome to Season 2. This is your invitation to remembrance. Jaya Rose, welcome to the Professional Priestess Podcast. I am very excited to have you here. I know before we started recording, I mentioned seeing some of your content and just having the full experience of I want to have that whole conversation. So I want to give you the space to introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are and what you do. But then I want to get right into that because I am really, really excited for people to go from a knowledge place to an embodied wisdom place on this area that you are so good at speaking to and really disseminating and digesting that information with people. So tell everybody about you, pretty please.
I love that so much. Well, hi, I'm Jaya Rose. I am a personal brand expert and have been online for over 10 years, helping women specifically build brands that give them freedom. And there is just so many layers to that. So my question is always I wonder what resonated, because there are a lot of different things that go into building a brand that actually gives you freedom. And what I mean by freedom is time freedom, financial freedom, the freedom of expression. Can you be truly you inside of your business and your brand? So I think we'll dive into that. It's really awesome that you're talking about embodied wisdom, because I literally recorded a TikTok right before this where I was talking about how your wisdom can and really should, in my opinion, turn into wealth. If you know you're here to be an entrepreneur and help people, you've got to tap into that wisdom that only you have, that uniqueness about you. So I think that that's something we can really talk about. But I help people do this in my membership. It's called the Bold Women in Business Membership. And it's all about really being bold, but then leveraging that boldness to build a stage for yourself online and activate an audience so you can do your work in a big way.
I love that you already touched on not just freedom being the point and the goal, but you defined what freedom means to you and to your clients. And that is such a perfect embodiment of the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Of knowledge is the what? Oh, I want freedom. But if we haven't gone inward and really defined what that freedom is for the self, a lot of times we're just taking the programming and we're building, and we think we're building in the direction that is aligned for us, but we haven't done the work to actually define. And so our perception is making our reality without us even reflecting on what's informing our own perception. So already the exuding of that embodiment is in such alignment for me. So
I love that. No, it's so true, because then it's vision, right? And if you don't know,
yes.
I'm a big fan of talking about what success means to us. And especially in this day and age, what does it look like for you to be successful? And for some people, it might be living in a minimalist way. It does not necessarily mean things or consumerism. For me, it doesn't. It means richness in daily life, which means freedom over my schedule. Honestly, that's the thing I care about the most. Give me my day to decide how I would like to do it, and I'm happy.
Yeah, for me, the days where there's something really big cosmically happening, last week when we had the Lunar New Year and we had Saturn entering Aries and then Saturn meeting Neptune in Aries at 0 degree. There were so many times where I was okay, I'm going to go to the forest and do a little witchy practice, and then I'm going to do this over here and I'm going to do this over here, and have so much flexibility in how I get to navigate my day, because I've been so intentional about what does it look like to work with clients? What is that client facing time? How how much of my direct time is required, and then having that how I define freedom being like when it does download of like, this is the practice, this is the moment, or go into meditation for this time, that I have the flexibility to be able to do that. And that I'm not scrambling to fit everything in.
Mhm.
That's like what I'm trying to avoid is that pressure of like, I don't have enough time to do the things that I want to do, whether that be the things that we used to define as should versus the things that we want. And I'm like, my desires are the shoulds now. Those are the priority pieces of like, those are the requirements. And so building my business in that way has been so profound and so important.
Mm.
And so many of my clients, I'm like, have you really asked yourself those questions? Do you really have clarity on what it is that you desire to build and in this specific way, so that when you get there, you love being in it as much as you thought that was the goal?
Yeah.
And I think it's not talked about as much as the structure, the strategy, the how do we get to that dollar amount.
Mm.
But once you get to that dollar amount, once you sign that amount of clients, once you're like in that place, is that what fits your system? And do you
Mhm.
feel delicious in that? And like, have you considered that ahead of time?
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. How does it feel to be in it? Um,
Yeah.
it should be the guiding
Mm.
force, right?
Yes. The like one of my other guests said it like this. She was like, does your life look great on paper, or does it feel good in your body? And like when we can match those two things up of like, yeah, I have the like on paper of what I always thought I was aiming for, either this dollar amount in the bank account or flowing through in this way or monthly reoccurring revenue, or like when I look at it structurally, yeah, it looks good. And then when I'm experiencing it, is it that delicious in my body the whole way through? And where are those disconnects? And then how do I shift that? So thank you, and shout out to Casey Villard for that beautiful
Love
reflection.
that.
Mm. Well, I would love to share with the audience the thing that like I grabbed about
Okay.
your content and let you just like nerd out about
I
it.
love that.
There are a ton of strategists, marketers, salespeople that are always telling, especially those of us who sell intangible things that are a little bit more difficult to speak to, a little bit more difficult to get into that groove and that flow of marketing. And for so many of us as spiritual practitioners or healers, or those of us working in the quantum or identity, a lot of times when we don't really understand how to bridge from like our energy-based space to this like social media business-based space, a lot of times we stay in this stuck little, oh, this is how I'm supposed to do it, of like telling them everything they get. This is how many modules, and this is how many calls, and these are the modalities that I have, and then here's all my certifications. And we're describing what we're doing, but we're not sharing with them the transformation. And so you had this potent piece of content about like your clients don't give a flying fuck about those things. They care about what is that transformation? What is that transmutation? What is their experience going to be like? And a lot of people say that, but when you were talking about it, the way that you covered it from so many different directions in a very embodied wisdom space,
Mm.
I was like, I want to like expand that and
Yeah.
really like hear you riff on that in a way that's going to help people go from, I know I need to do that, into I
Yes.
understand how I do that
Mhm.
now.
Okay.
So
All right. Let me give a little
giving you the
Let me give you a trigger warning because I do, I think that online in particular, we've been sold a dream. And I'm over here selling you the dream too, the freedom dream, right? And I think that that dream has watered down the potency of what it actually takes to have it. And there are a lot of
okay.
people who come into my in the Bold Women membership. Tons of women are in this space too, right? Like I've had a transformation in my life. I became certified at something, or I have a practice that I offer that changes people's lives. So they have certainty around the potency of their work, but uncertainty around how to express it. I think that's what you're saying,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
Yep.
one thing, then this is where the trigger warning comes in, is that I am not a fan of the game, right? The game, the hierarchy, the patriarchy, the some people at the top, a lot of people at the bottom. And unfortunately, that is the game that online business plays. It's a very patriarchal system. And so we do have to learn how to play the game, but we have to do it our way. Like that's the cornerstone of this. Okay. But the thing that happens, and okay, let me just like channel how to say this with as much love as I can, because I feel like a number of people need to hear it. You can have a deep transformation in your own life and desire to build a business around that. But if you don't have the exterior results of that transformation, like you feel internally free and you go, I want other people to feel this way, but you're working in a 9 to 5, or you're in a relationship that feels overbearing or does not actually support you. There are a number of ways that you are not actually free in your life, right? But you feel the freedom inside. I don't see a pathway for building a personal brand that actually will be embodied, because it's not embodied in your life. You have to, and this is the part that I'm like, it's going to sting, but it cannot just be embodied internally. That's not enough to stand out online. And the reason is because your actual marketing, the way you communicate the value of what you do, needs to be in an actual market niche. The market niches are health, wealth, relationships, and then there's a category of personal development. And this is where everyone's like, I want that one. And here's what I will say. If you pick the personal development category, you have to be so fucking bold that there is no question that when I'm getting on a video and I'm like, the secret to life and your success is that you have to believe in yourself. I could do that because I have so much practice being on video and being bold. But if you don't have that practice and you're not able to like stop the scroll, get someone to listen to you, then you have to lead with a promise that's actually going to change someone's daily life.
Yeah.
And so,
that is not said to people who are like so excited about this thing that you carry. And I totally agree with what you're saying. This, like, we're sold this dream of like, just tell people about your transformation, share your story, be consistent. And all of a sudden that's going to bring clientele in. And it's like, especially now, maybe at the beginning, maybe at the like COVID boom, that would have worked. But now that absolutely does not work. And we are seeing so many healers in particular with this skills gap of understanding how to market our businesses, or not even understanding what it is that we actually sell. And I think that's super important. And like, I'm saying this from a very like lived space, guys. Like, I do this so consistently because I have been that healer that's saying like, oh, it's just really intangible and there's so many facets of it and it's different for each person. And I'm sure you've heard this from so many different healers. And like, we can use it as a protection, as a cloak, to just continue to share the story and kind of follow the overviews without really going from the knowledge to the embodied wisdom. And that's why I felt this conversation was super important, because of the like no bullshit way that you offer the like truth around it. And so let's rip these band-aids off. Let's get to the stinging part and learn that like, okay, that might be really triggering for some of us, and yet I can move through it, and we're going to support you. And like, how do I take that next step through it? How do I go, that feels really massive and huge, and maybe I don't think I can do it? Yes, you can, but it is going to take a little bit more truth and a little bit more, what I like to say, descending into the humanity. Us healers are so good at ascending into the divinity, but descending into the humanity and what it takes to actually run a business is very different than what it takes to hold space, to offer the space for transmutation, to be the chrysalis for someone's unbecoming and rebecoming. And yet, as a modern healer, light worker, priestess, we can't skip one. We have to do the synthesis of both. And if you can't do the synthesis of both, you are going to either need to hire somebody to help you with that, or you're going to have to get really serious about that self-study and self-dedication and education to be able to synthesize, because our industry requires it now. And for a while, it didn't. Like, it was very different in like early 2020 to sign clients as a healer, as a priestess, as an energy worker, versus now where so many people have been burned in this industry, this unregulated space. And there are so many people who, go to a retreat for a weekend and are like, just like you're saying, I feel it inside and want to share it and want to shift into having my own business in this way. Now I am, and then claim that thing. And some of them have great sales and marketing background and are kind of, as you mentioned, selling that dream. And then people get into the service. And now we have so many people who have been burned, who have been mispromised, who have not had the follow through. And now we have way more discerning individuals out there looking to purchase and purchasing in much different ways now.
Yeah, we're in a trust recession.
Yes.
And so that requires flexibility, but also specificity. I would say that is the thing that I find is challenging for a lot of people, but also it's the medicine, right? Like if you can really look at your work and allow yourself to narrow it into one of the market niches and be specific about how that's going to help someone, I cannot overstate the value of speaking to someone's daily lived experience in your marketing. And I do think that there's that level of just releasing the idea that it's enough. And I don't mean good enough, like it's not a value of your value, right? But it's not enough to be passionate, to be skilled, to have wisdom, to even have embodied wisdom. It is not enough to bring that into a marketplace that is inundated with AI, that is overrun with so many people saying the same things you're saying. And so it's a combination of being sold on yourself and learning how to sell. And like that is the convergence, I think, of that embodied wisdom that you're talking about. But it's also just becoming a savvy businesswoman. That's why my membership is Bold Women in Business. We are not bold women just speaking our truth for no reason, right? We're doing it because we believe in our work to where we want it to help people and support our lives. That is a business. And so I think I have like a unique lens here because I've been an entrepreneur since I was 24. I'm now 49. So I have so many years in entrepreneurship.
Wow.
I'm unemployable. I really have never worked for someone else. And I know what it takes to grow a business. And as much as I would love to say that it's just having passion, that is a portion of the recipe, right? And so learning marketing, understanding how to sell your work means that you are willing to tell somebody what they need to hear. And is that manipulative? Yes. Like, I think that there's just this element of this too. If I can give you the freedom to allow yourself to be manipulative and like not judge that because so many people in the online space who are like the gurus who have made millions of dollars, who they are manipulative with bad intention, I would say. They are manipulative. Let me rephrase that. They are manipulative with self-centered intention. Okay?
Yeah. Capitalistic intention.
Yes. If I'm being manipulative, I'm not ever thinking I'm being manipulative, by the way. It's just that sales language is. You are purposely saying something to get a reaction. Okay, that is like the definition of manipulation, is like you're doing it to get something. Right?
Yes.
It's strategy. I am fine with that because I know that I lead with impact. Like I wake up every day with impact on my heart. And so I know that I'm the one that should be in front of more people. And that is what all the women who are attracted to Bold Women in Business, like all of them feel the same way. And so let's play the game, but with the pure intention and and if that means we have to learn how to like say something a little bit more savvy.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Yes. Yes. I just had a phenomenal marketer on. Her name is Danielle. And we were talking a little bit about, the difference between manipulation from this like societal perspective. Cause like we do have this negative connotation to the word manipulation. And she reframed it into influence. And like the little healer in me was just like, oh yes, I love being able to like navigate around the like very human negative connotation to manipulation and really reframe it as like, marketing is learning how to influence someone who's like watching, someone who's receiving. And I'm like, yes, but it's the same thing. Like, we're talking, how do you effectively manipulate someone who is already on the like dopamine scroll so that we can allow our lighthouses to beam out into the fucking ether through the internet and find the people who need this work, who deeply desire this work. And like you were saying, you have to be so bought in and so sold on what it is that you do and who you help and why you help them to be able to like participate in that game or that rat race so often, especially when it feels like a lot of times you're not talking to anyone and yet you need to be talking to someone so specifically. And that duality from that like quantum perspective, it is a little bit difficult until you hone that skill set of like, I am talking to this individual, ideal, niche down client while also talking to nobody. Like, nobody's on the other end of when I'm recording. Nobody's on the other end of that until I send it out there. And like, that is a skill set that you develop in this. And I don't think people are as honest about like sometimes how long or how much repetition or how much failure it takes to get to the point where content creation is super flowy, where you're just like, oh yeah, I had a download, I turn my phone on, I edit, and I don't have to edit, and I just like throw it up and it's this and that. And I think so many, especially like sales and marketing and like content coaches, they like talk about it like you can get to that pretty quickly. And like personally, I have found that you can get to being able to record the visibility pretty quickly for myself. And yet the whole understanding of like, let me think like a marketer. So I'm not content creating, I'm marketing and selling. And like that shift was what kind of caught me up in that like post-COVID era of like, oh, me just like throwing up my thoughts, my day to day, my like overview of what I did today, my reflection on what I talked about to my clients. There came a time where that was no longer like turning into regular pipeline saturation. And I was like, I'm not necessarily sure I know how to market. Like, once I get on a call with someone, I know how to like talk through what it is that I do. And I'm so confident in this, but like the actual skills gap of marketing was something that like at the beginning, I was so confident in myself that carried me through. And in that like community and existence and time frame, it worked. But I hit this like wall really hard where I was like, I don't understand the buyer psychology, the what they need to be seen in my content, the how it flows through. And now that the market is so much more saturated with other people saying the exact same thing, a lot of them, I personally don't necessarily believe that they can do what they're saying they can do. And yet sales and marketing is going to beat out a high skill set every time, because we are utilizing the internet. And when people don't know you and when people haven't experienced your work, the sales and marketing is going to beat out that high skill set 9 times out of 10. And so bringing these business focused conversations with individuals like yourself who are of that high integrity, but don't shy away from like that honesty of like, hey guys, the dream is beautiful and yeah, it is possible. And there are some people who like, you know, flow through and it is that like rainbows and ponies pretty much the whole time. But for the most part, we are building businesses, not just giving our gifts away. And I think that's a big thing that's not talked about, especially from priestess to priestess, from healer to healer, from light worker to light worker. So I am really excited for people to not only gain this information, but really have the like supportive digestion pieces. So if somebody's listening to this and they're going, okay, I have a little bit more work to do than I originally thought. Like, I have been much more on the like skill set side, modality side, and I've just kind of like let the business flow a little bit, or haven't really seen or identified myself as the business owner in addition to the service provider. What's something, if this is clicking for somebody, that you would recommend they focus on, they consider, they do? Like, what's a reframe that they can like sink their teeth into to actually start to shift in that intentional way?
Well, first, it's celebrating the awareness. So if you're listening to this right now and your awareness is coming through that you have some work to do, you know, I would say celebrate that and instead of allowing it to overwhelm you, because I know that that can happen too, because it does require a decision. And I think that based on what you're talking about, Lindsay, it sounds like you're speaking to people who are maybe making this decision. Am I here to share my gifts? Like, have you bought into that idea? Is that your identity? That you are someone who is here to share your gifts, and that if you're sharing your gifts, that is the measure of success. Because I think that may be true for a lot of people. I would like to introduce a new identity, and that is that your gifts will not be adequately shared or create the impact you want unless you are properly supported.
Yeah. Yep.
And
We're
so,
we're moving towards talking about good householder status and magic, which means not only are you sharing your gifts, but you are able to pay for all of the things that you need and moving into that want space through the giving of your gifts. And like that disconnect is a piece that I see. Again, like 90% of healers kind of move through that of like, okay, I'm giving, I'm just showing up, and we're showing up in these spiritual principles. And yet without that business piece, without the understanding of like what I'm creating and where I'm going and the skills of like marketing and sales and structure, a lot of times then you get to this point of frustration where you're giving your gifts and showing up over and over and over again. And yet it's not turning into that client flow. And then you're not able to give your gifts in the way that you want.
yeah. And it could be turning into client flow, but you're undercharging, right? Or
Yep.
it could be that you're not undercharging, but you're taking on too much. There's a lot of variations to deciding that I call this being the star of your brand. And this is what I like to help women do, is step into the star status. Because when you
Yeah.
are the star of your brand, it requires a lot of inner world to be projected out, i.e. that embodied wisdom. But it also requires you to have standards for what it means for you to be on that stage, on that platform. And for me, to show up on video as a 49-year-old with a high needs 12-year-old going through perimenopause, I have real life stuff happening. What do I need in order to show up as the star of my brand and attract Lindsay seeing one of my pieces of content and inviting me on here, right? Attract what I want, what my business needs to thrive. How do I do that? And that is requirements and standards for yourself. And number one requirement for a business is that you're cash flow positive. Okay. I am not on here feeling good. I wouldn't be able to pay for my hormone replacement therapy that helps me actually show up. Right. And so bare
Yep.
minimum, you've got to decide how much money you need to make to support the lifestyle you want. This is the very first exercise I have people do in the BW, because give you a money goal calculator. And it's like, how much money, how many people, what is the offer? And you can play with it to decide what is your actual goal here. And then I help you work it into your dream calendar. How does that work in your calendar? Because those two things are what is going to give you the foundation to be able to become the star of your brand, to attract all the things you want.
Yes.
But standards. And it takes that shift of like, of course my gifts are worthy of abundance. Of course they are. But it means I'm going to have to create the space and allow the receiving of that.
Yes. One of the big aspects that I talk about when I talk pricing, and like especially when I first started at the beginning of offering like private coaching services, I got a lot of feedback from people not in the industry, like people around me, like my friends, my family, when I was like transitioning into this, about how expensive it was. I was charging $5,000 and $7,500 for my like original programmings, my like 3-month programmings. And people were like shocked and appalled and had so many feelings that I was charging that much for like spiritual services, wellness services, mindset services, all of these things. And one of the big pieces of how I've always priced things is I look at if someone comes in and purchases this thing and uses it to the absolute max, because a lot of times our clients don't utilize absolutely everything. So like, here's all the things that are included. If they utilize all of that, am I going to get 50% through their program, 75% through their program, 90% through their program, and feel like I've already given the amount that I've received? And am I going to deflate a little bit? Am I going to burn out a little bit? Am I going to get resentful at all? Because that's when I need to raise my prices. I want to make sure that the entirety of my service feels juicy, luscious, amazing, because that reciprocity is there, that what they are paying me for and what I am offering is in that sacred space of reciprocity. And so I really love how you were talking about backing into what a lot of people like start over here looking at of like, how much money do you need to be making and how does that break down? Not just in how many do I have to sell, but what does that look like on my calendar? What does that look like for my 24-hour period, for my week period? For me, I do that all through my own like cycle as well. Like, am I going to be required to work through the time in my own bleed cycle that like is a no-go time for working? Am I able to operate with my child the way that I want to operate? Do I have the time and flexibility to do the other things that I want? Or do I have to prioritize all of these back-to-back client sessions because that's going to deplete and then I'm not going to be able to like show up in my fullness for the entirety of these programs? And like that is the most important thing to me, that like when I am selling a program and offering a container, that like I am at 100% or 110% for my delivery the whole time because of that sacred reciprocity.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you need to show up in that way? So I think that there's a commitment level of this. And so I think, you had asked what is something that they can do now. And I think the thing to do now is really to make the decision. Am I here to just share my gifts or am I here to grow a business? And if you're here to grow a business, then there are requirements around what you need. And you've got to be willing to live in those and like become that version of you who asks for those. And maybe that means starting with meeting your own needs. Maybe it means asking your partner for more things. There are layers to everything. And I know y'all are, who's listening, you're all healers, so you know this. But my biggest piece of advice is always meet yourself exactly where you are. One of the ethos of the Bold Women in Business movement is that healing is a business activity. And that means that you literally are in your abundant energy while you're healing. So if I have something come forward, like I'm always coming up against my own edges as I expand. And so when I have something come forward and I need to focus on it, maybe I'm doing inner child healing or I'm just resting, whatever the energy I'm putting in, I literally count that as money-making activity. That is a money-making
Mm.
activity. The same as posting a video is. The same as having a conversation is. And I believe that. Like I have trained my brain to believe that every time I have a new awareness, every time I have a doubt or fear, and I have the awareness that I have that doubt and fear, that is a healing moment. And the healing is a business activity. So if I'm doing business activities, then that's a win, right? So then I get to win. So then I'm just literally always winning 100% of the time.
Yeah. That reframe I've put in with like nervous system work, like anytime that I have to like stop what it is that I am doing that maybe is like on my to-do list, to stand up and like move my arms or to vibrate back and forth or to actually like lay down on the floor and like let my capacity build up to the space that I need it to be, desire it to be, and deserve it to be, that I've reframed very similarly to what you're saying as like, this is equally as much a money-making activity as me sitting in Canva and designing, as me writing content, as me sending out emails, as me doing like answering DMs. Because if I'm not able to hold what then starts to show up, I can have a viral video, but if I can't hold that influx and I don't feel available and I don't feel calibrated for that, I'm like breaking my own loop. And so all of those pieces in our businesses, they are our spiritual growth. They are our personal development. And like they all come together. Like business is the biggest personal development journey you will ever go on. And like I think that's a great way to reframe this. What often healers separate of like, oh, the business part, the technical part, the like technology part, like, oh, I'm just not good at that, or oh, I don't like enjoy that piece the same way I do with my gifts. But both of those pieces are so deeply important to be able to like change the world through your gift, to affect the collective. You need to be growing the income and the impact, they go together.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's so true. And as I think about that idea of I'm winning all the time, that
Mhm.
I honestly, if y'all are listening, like if that's all you take from this, take that and start to see how you can apply it. Because I'm thinking about how right now I'm creating a new free offer, and it's called the Bold Brand Quiz. And it helps you identify the place where you're dimming or shrinking and how, like, what you need to work on right now. So instead of everything, just like
Yeah.
what are the one thing that would move the needle for you now? I'm very excited about it. But so it's like, that's just computer work, right? I'm using a little bit. This is ways that I sometimes use AI. I don't use a lot of AI in my business, but I'll use it for brainstorming ideas. And so as I'm doing that, that is all energy of like, this is money making activities. There's no,
Yeah.
there's no separation between I'm on a power hour with a client or I'm in the BW doing a coaching thread. There's no separation between any of that and the back end work of enrolling someone or canceling someone. Like
Mhm.
everything is met with the same amount of love and attention because this is my life's work and all of it is my life's work because it's what it
Yeah.
needs. It's just like parenting or marriage, where you don't just enjoy your marriage or love your partner when everything is good, right? You enjoy when you also have to work on it. And it's the same thing, but if you approach it like it's all a part of money making, I think that's really helpful. Like this is a money making
Yeah.
activity. Decide that it's a money making activity, and guess what? It makes it a money making activity.
And that is such a reframe from like, we'll use the like bro marketing perspective of like prioritize your money making activities at, that very Alex Hermosi perspective of like the first
Yeah,
four,
I
if you're
agree with
not a $10 million business owner yet, the first 4 hours need to be like all marketing, like getting in front of new people's eyes. And I do think that this pot- potential reframe, especially for that more like empathetic healer perspective, would be very helpful for some people,
Mhm.
so that you can go, oh, there isn't a hierarchy in my activities of like, if it's not directly client facing or
Yeah.
if it's not something that the matrix defines as a money making activity, then it's not making me money and
Or it's
bringing
not
this person,
valuable.
or
And
it's
that's
not
so
valuable.
fucked up. I mean, all
Yeah.
of it is just patriarchy and capitalism, and all of it is designed to take us away from our inner power and our sovereignty. So we have
Mhm.
to, anytime something is not serving us, it's because it was designed by somebody who wanted it to serve them.
Yes. Mhm.
And that,
And like building our businesses in ways that like fully serve and support us. And one of those is the success piece of, like you said, where do you start? Your business needs to be making enough money to keep you resourced so that you can continue to be the star of your business. And I think that's something that a lot of us as women have been taught is greedy to want that, is shameful to want that,
Mhm.
is self-centered and narcissistic. And I know you touched a little bit on the like self-centered individual and personal branding on one of your more recent
Yeah.
posts as well. Can we talk a little bit about that, about the fact that it does kind of take you putting yourself at the center when you are developing a personal brand, when people are buying not just what you're offering, but who you are?
Yeah. And it is hard when you're an empath and you naturally center others. Like, for example, when I'm in a group of people in person, I will be the person who's encouraging everyone to be a part of things. That's just how I
Yeah.
am. I can take
Yeah.
up space, but how you see me on video and how much space I take up with authority is not how I'm going to share space with people in
Yeah.
community. Okay. And that's
Yeah.
because that who I actually am is somebody who tends to listen and then share something meaningful. And if you share something meaningful, that is very different than sharing your own reflection or how that made me feel, right? Even just like basic communication style. And I know a number of you listening are probably resonating with that you're the space holder, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you then go on stage and take up the space when off stage you're the space holder? And so what I will offer to you is that there needs to be a persona. So one of the categories, actually I call them missions in the BW, but one of the missions that I walk people through is how to find your brand persona. Because you being you, who you are, and people will tell you this, just be who you are when you're on the phone. Just be who you are when you're with your friends. Don't do that. Not if who you are is overly giving, is overly like dimming, right? No, you need to develop a brand persona that, yes, matches your natural internal state, but allows you to know what to project out. So I actually just did a video on this, how to find your brand persona. And so I'll give this exercise to everyone. You can do a post on social media or you can simply ask friends, either way, but you want to ask the question, how would you describe me if I wasn't with you? How would you describe me to someone else? And
Yeah.
so I just recently did this. I've done this many times on my social media, but I just did it again to show my BW members how to do it. Okay. So I was like, look, I'm going to do it. I'll show you. And so what happens is people naturally just give you a list of things. So I ended
Yeah.
up with a list of 40 different adjectives that people describe me as. But there was a few words on repeat. Like it was
Yep.
unbelievable. I was like, what? And one of the words was vibrant. And like 8 different people said vibrant. And I never in a million years would describe myself as vibrant, even though I don't think I'm not. It's just not,
Yeah.
right? I would describe how it feels to be me. Big-hearted, maybe fiery, but
Yeah.
right. So the reason this is important is because when you're growing a personal brand, you need to have this persona for number one, because video takes like 40% of your energy. So you have to project when you're on video. And if you project intentionally into the brand persona, which I'll give you an example in a minute, then you have a focus, right? You know what? Because it's like, oh, I'm going to open my phone. What am I projecting? My voice? What, right? It's like, what am I actually projecting? No, I'm projecting the persona and the expectation that other people have of me, not who I think I am. So the people who are describing you, make sure they know you a little bit. These people who are describing me do. And so I took a few of those words. One of them was fiery. People said inspiring. So even if I were to just take, and I probably don't think of vibrant because then I'm like, what is vibrant? Vibrant isn't a feeling to me, but empowered is. And I think that's actually
Yeah.
what they meant. And so I take empowered, fiery, and inspiring. And I project that out because what happens when you take the expectation of your audience and you meet it is you create trust.
Yeah.
So this exercise alone does so many things, right? We're winning on all levels. You're winning because you understand how people perceive you, but then you can use it to project, and you can use it to create consistency in your brand persona, and you can use it to get the fuck out of your own way as you walk on stage. I want you to think about your brand as a stage. And so you're not being who you are when you're relaxed with your client. You're taking portions of that, of course. But when you step on stage, you have to rise into being that star of your brand. And it's not just based on nothing. I mean, I go through so many different exercises of how to know what to focus on, because focus is what will help you win.
I love that you're saying it's you stepping on stage when you're marketing, because for those of us who are healers, priestesses, practitioners, being on stage is very different than being in session, being in ceremony, being in ritual. And that is a big differentiator, because showing up as your ceremonial leader, ritual leader, self, energy, session self to do the marketing, to do the stage work is not it. And that comment. Just be yourself. Just show up how you would with your
Yeah.
friend. Like, that is
Please
a lot
don't.
of what.
Please don't, because you're going to blend right in and people are going to scroll past.
Yeah.
Like, even
Yes.
put some red lipstick. I love that we both showed up in our red lipstick. I would
Always
love
a
to just
win.
bust another myth here, as long as I feel like I kind of came here to be the myth buster.
Yes, please.
Because I think there's also this aspect of like, what should I look like on camera? I don't want to be on camera because I don't have makeup on or I don't have my hair done. And so this is another brand component. This is not just, do I feel like doing my hair today, or right, do I have to put lipstick on to be on camera? Those are not the right questions. The question is, how do I meet my brand expectation? And the brand expectation you agree on, this is not just an expectation other people have. This one is actually what you agree to. And so the standard that I put for myself on my brand is that I show up most of the time on video. Okay. Because sometimes I'll just be, who knows, right? You have an inspiration. But most of the time, if I'm going to show up on video for my brand, I am going to look like the person who would show up in person for a client. I was a personal trainer for 12 years before I came online. So I showed up every day for clients in my small fitness studio. And I wore fitness gear, right? I was looking cute. I had on my little fitness outfit, but I always had my hair and makeup done. That was a standard to me. That's what made me feel like I was going to work. It wasn't just like a social gathering or something. It was work. And so I think that this gets lost online. And again, it's the dream sold of, it's just freedom, laptop lifestyle. You don't have to, you don't have to go to work. What? I just don't think listen, I have a multiple 6-figure business. I show up for that accordingly. And I don't act like someone else. If I never wore makeup, I don't wear makeup. Right?
Yes.
But find a style that you can repeat, because that's branding. Branding, all branding is something that is easy to understand. It is memorable and it's repeatable. That's it.
So important. And I think starting it with, you get to choose what that brand consistency is for you. And so, like you mentioned, if you don't wear makeup, makeup is not that brand consistency piece. So if you are that healer who is like, I am always in yoga pants and my like yoga top, and I don't do the red lip and I don't do then that is your brand persona. But being, like you're saying, that consistent, that showing up in the way that like you are creating that expectation, and it's a feedback loop of like, I am showing up in this way and people are now expecting me to show up in this way, and thus I am building trust in that. And so I am very similar to you, and it took me a long time to get there. When I first started, it was always hair done, lips done, full-blown makeup, because I came from being a professional makeup artist, managing a salon, being like smoky eyes at 8 a.m. on a Saturday, to having my own brand. And I did that. And then I had to go through the opposite pendulum swing. And I was like, I want the I just got out of the pool because I'm a digital nomad now. And I'm just like taking my call like this. And I did a bunch of content in that space. And then I worked through the pendulum swing of like, okay, I've done the extreme over here. I've done the extreme over here. And then I got to, where were you how many years ago telling me this before I like figured it out for myself? But then I had to go, what is my brand? Who am I on the internet when someone doesn't know me, so that I can be consistent in that? And for me, when I do my podcast recordings, when I do planned recordings, there's always a lip color. There's always a lip color, and my hair is always down. And then I will do occasional little videos of like, this just came through and I want to share with you. Or like, I'm lounging in bed and like, I just want to share a little bit of this. And then people get to go, that's her like behind the scenes. That's her like, so heavy on my heart, got to share it. But that I do have that consistent way for me to show up. And also, like you mentioned, it is a way for me to tell my being, this is the version of us that we're stepping into. As soon as I start putting that lip on, I am much more in my evocative flow of like how I say it and how I present it, and allowing myself to talk more with my hands and like be my biggest self. And that's not always who I am on my client calls, where I am more of that like holder of space and listening and doing less of the talking and letting you take up that space. But who I am when I am marketing, who I am when I'm on stage or at the digital storefront is different than who I am in session. And yet they're all really important pieces. And it is that intentional manipulation. It is that like really integrous manipulation of like, this is the marketing funnel and how I best support my income and my impact and finding my right people who are like, this really did change my life. It is playing the game in that intentional way. And so
Mhm.
I really appreciate the way that you're breaking that down for a lot of people who haven't heard it that honest, that direct, that clear. So thank you
Direct.
so
Yeah, that was one that no one said, which I think everyone should have said. Um, that's my brand voice. But one piece that you said around something around like getting yourself to look a certain way or like the lip color that you use. I think another rule that you can put on yourself, because I'm a big fan of breaking the rules. So let's assume that all the rules are broken. Now let's create standards in the place of those rules. So if your standard for yourself is that you do need to have makeup on, but you're not putting makeup on, and therefore that's keeping you from being visible, then that is an
Yep.
act of sabotage.
Yep.
So let's look at that. Let's bless that. And now let's shift it, because you either need to do one of two things. You need to rise to your own standard and put the makeup on, or you need to shift the standard and make a new rule for yourself. Either
Yes.
one has no drama. If there's drama, that is a resistance to being seen and or being in the abundance or the success you actually desire. So like, let's separate those things so that we can act accordingly.
Because it is about getting you to that embodied place of like, if you not being ready or visible in that way keeps you from sharing in the way that's going to like allow those clients to find you and show up, then like that is part of your work. And I think framing it in that way of like, how do you show up as the business owner, as the business leader? Because that's different than you showing up in the session as the embodied healer and being able to navigate through those two and set yourself up for success in that way. And after my pendulum swing, that's really where I landed with when I shifted from my morning practice being so about my spiritual skill set and tools and went into, okay, but what does my business leader need? I started getting ready consistently because it made it so much easier for me to show up and for me to like offer those quick videos or jump on stories or do this or that over here. So I really appreciate and like love that those perspective shifts, and also again just the very direct, consistent way that you're saying it. So as we come to the close of our time together, is there anything else that you want to share with somebody who is kind of this like ideal avatar that we're talking about, going, ooh, there are some gaps in the way that I've been seeing myself because I've only identified with the healer, and it's time to step into the business owner, the business leader more and more and more?
Yeah, I love that. Well, I am developing this quiz right now. So if you guys want to have it, I'll give
Yes,
it to you. I
please.
give it to you like within the week. But I think that being really clear with yourself around what your next steps are, I think that's the most valuable thing you can do as an entrepreneur, because there are always a million things that you could/should do. And so that part of it is going to keep us overwhelmed. And so in order to really get clear on what are my next steps in growing my personal brand and focusing on each one, like right now, I'm just working on what is my brand persona, right? Or right now, I'm working on the repeatable messages that I can have in my pocket so I can create better videos, and not thinking that you have to do it all at once. So that's what I
Yeah.
do in this quiz is I go, here are the steps. Where are you? And let's decide what your next step is right now.
What a good way to like, okay, let's bring this into a manageable follow through
Yes,
space so that that overwhelm doesn't keep us in that like freeze or self-sabotage state. I love
absolutely.
that.
Yes,
Mm,
action. I'm a big fan of imperfect action.
yeah. Done is better than perfect because perfect does not exist.
Yes, I love that. Well, thank
Oh,
you so much for having me. And I hope to connect with y'all. I'm sure you'll put stuff if they want to check out my social media or the freebie
yep.
that I
Well,
have.
drop all of your links so that you guys can visit not only your social media, but your website. We will definitely put that quiz in here. And I would love to do some promotion for the episode itself with that quiz. And we can like share our different types
Fun.
and get maybe some of your perspective and feedback on like how we're starting and moving through. But Jaya Rose, thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for being so direct. It's what so many of the healers and light workers and magical practitioners really need.
Of course. Thank you for having me. See you soon. Bye.